Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am so excited to have you here. We are going to share a little bit of time together as I reflect on resolve advocacy. I'm just going to share for a few minutes. We are going to have the chat open. We also are going to have the Q&A open, so you're welcome to post any questions in that Q&A feature. Do that in the Q&A feature and not in the chat. That would be super helpful. I can take some questions at the end. But first of all, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So tonight, I plan to share a bit of history on what Resolve's advocacy work, primarily in Congress, looked like when I started on the staff of Resolve in 2004. For those of you that don't know, I am leaving Resolve on June 30th. This was a decision made by the Resolve Board of Directors as they are looking for a new CEO. I've had the privilege of seeing history being made at Resolve, and I wanted to share my perspective and hopefully give you motivation to keep fighting the fight and advocating for this community. My hope is that by revisiting our past, you can understand where we've been and how to continue to move forward with our issues. Some say you can't really impact the future without understanding or appreciating the past. I hope that you walk away from this talk tonight learning something about where we've been as a community and how you can impact the future. I have to also share in the photo, I'm wearing our 1 in 6 shirts, and tonight I'm wearing very proudly our Fight for Alabama Families t-shirt. All right, a little bit of context. A quick glance at my personal relationship with Resolve over the years, as Resolve has been a part of my life for 26 years. So it started with my husband and I on our family building journey in the late 1990s, early 2000s. And then in 1999, my therapist referred me to Resolve, and she's referred a lot of you to Resolve as well. In 2000, I started volunteering for Resolve through what was then the Washington, D.C. chapter. We had a chapter structure that no longer exists. From 2000 to 2004, I was an active volunteer with that DC chapter. And I also served on some committees that were Resolve National. I put that in air quotes because that's how we always referred to the mothership, to the Resolve headquarters office as Resolve National. And I had the privilege of serving on a couple of committees with the national organization as well as the chapter. And then in 2004, Resolve moved its headquarters from Massachusetts to the Washington, D.C. area, and I was recruited to join the staff. And I started out managing our nationwide network of volunteers. What a joy that was to do that job for a few years. And then in 2007, I was named the president and CEO. And as I've said, June 30th, 2025, in just 2 weeks, it will be my last day on the staff of Resolve. I like to start almost every conversation about Resolve, as you all know, grounding ourselves in Resolve's mission. Because as a nonprofit charitable organization, this is what drives us. This is what we know what to do each day and how to determine how we spend our time. So let me just read you our mission statement. Resolve, the National Infertility Association, established in 1974, is dedicated to ensuring that all people challenged in their family building journey reach resolution through being empowered by knowledge, supported by community, united by advocacy, and inspired to act. I highlighted those last 3 words because I'm sure you've heard me say this many times. Those are my favorite words of our entire mission statement, inspired to act. I love that Resolve inspires people to act, and you inspire me. So tonight, I'm going to share a little bit about what has inspired me, and in return, I hope it inspires you. So, what was advocacy like, Barb, in 2004? I had a hard time kind of coming up with some visuals for this, and unfortunately, I don't have a lot of photographs, but something that absolutely had to be on this slide was that BlackBerry. If you have no idea what that was, it is a BlackBerry. And the reason why this sticks in my head so strongly is because Erin Kramer, who organized our advocacy days in the early 2000s, did it all on her BlackBerry. And I have visions of her texting, or I don't even know what you called it, messaging a senator's office or a congressman's office, confirming an appointment, changing an appointment. It was all done on her BlackBerry in real time. And she did it all. And for whatever reason, that just sticks in my head, how you could organize an entire advocacy day via your BlackBerry. We had, somewhere between sometimes 25 people at our advocacy day. Sometimes we got up to 50 people. It was not consistent. We did not do a federal advocacy day every year. And then when we look at state advocacy, it was all dispersed through those chapters. So it was not run out of the national office, and it was really managed and motivated and recruited, and everything was done really at that local level, at the chapter level. There was a bill that was like the first insurance bill in Congress, and it was introduced in 1999 by a congressman from New York named Anthony Weiner. He introduced that bill for several years. It was one of his signature bills, and it was a very comprehensive IVF insurance bill, and it was called the Family Building Act. And so we have the Family Building Act of 1999 and of 2001 and of 2003. So when I started at Resolve in 2004, we were advocating for that Family Building Act. That was our big issue, that and the adoption tax credit. So, but the Family Building Act was really our signature bill. Now, I know I keep focusing a lot on Advocacy Day, but just to give you all a little bit of some of the key milestones related to Advocacy Day, we finally hit 100 advocates for Advocacy Day in 2009. And then we started doing Advocacy Day every year starting in 2011. So that's kind of when we really were consistently doing it. We finally hit 200 advocates in 2016. And we had 300 advocates in 2020. And then 2021, it was actually June 17th, which is tomorrow. It was Risa Levine's birthday, and we hit 502 advocates in 2021. So gives you a little bit of perspective on where we were. So advocacy was not centralized. It was not automated. It was pretty rudimentary, a lot of paper, and one person on her BlackBerry. So think about how that would look, today if we are trying to manage Advocacy Day. So then I looked at a few things comparing 2004 to now. And there's really so much, quite honestly, that I could talk about that I'm so proud of, whether it's patient education or public awareness or all of our media or support groups. But I'm focusing tonight on our advocacy work and where we've been and where we are today. But quite honestly, there's so many moments. I'm wearing our Alabama shirt from last year that I could talk about, but I wanted to just share a few of these highlights so you get a little bit of a sense of where we were in 2004, and hopefully you can appreciate that everything that happens today and into the future is built on that hard work of the past. Some of you may have just showed up for Advocacy Day this year and you think, hey, they have 800 people every year. That has not been our history. So again, started off with, I remember an Advocacy Day that I was at before I was on the staff where there was about 25 people there. There were 2 bills in Congress, that Family Building Act, the adoption tax credit. Now, last year we advocated for 13 bills. When I started at Resolve, we had 7 states that had an IVF mandate, and they were pretty crappy. They weren't super great mandates, but there were 7 states that specifically called out coverage for IVF. Today we have 15. Fertility preservation insurance coverage, that was not even a thing. 0 states, did not even exist. Now we have 20 states with a fertility preservation insurance mandate. Surrogacy was banned in New York. We got that law changed in 2020. The adoption tax credit was finally made permanent in 2012, something we were advocating for back in 2000, the first Advocacy Day that I participated in. In 2004, no veterans had access to IVF. Now some do. And wow, federal employees, they didn't have any kind of coverage in 2004, and now they have a lot. So those are just some ways to think about where we've come and what it looked like in 2004. It looked like we had Mount Everest, quite honestly, to climb, and not quite sure how we were going to get there. One of the highlights for me personally in my career was being invited to the State of the Union address in March of 2024. I still remember when that email came through inviting me. I was invited by my Congressman, Jerry Connolly. It was such an honor of a lifetime to represent you, our community, on the biggest night of the year in Washington, D.C. Each member of Congress gets 1 ticket for a guest. Jerry usually invites his wife, Smitty, and there's the 3 of us in that top right photo. But that night, Jerry gave his ticket to me. I was his guest. He chose to elevate our community, the family building and infertility community, and make a statement that we matter. In memory of Congressman Connolly, who passed away recently, I want to thank him for advocating for our community and for being one of the biggest champions that we have in Congress. All right, now for the real reason we are here tonight. I could tell stories for hours about hundreds of people, each who have made such a difference for our community. You are all my heroes. But tonight, I want to share some reflections of a few key advocates that influenced my life and shaped how I share my voice, how I advocate for you, and how I have tried to move our issues forward since 2004. These are the women that made me the advocate I am today. So if you think I'm a good advocate, it's because of these women. These are the very big shoulders that we now stand on as we move our issues forward. I could talk for hours about each one, but I will do my best to share the highlights and the impact that they have had on my life. I'm going to name this group Women Who Roar. I promise you will find inspiration in all of these amazing women. As I share their impact on me, I hope you reflect on the people that have inspired you to act. Remember them, honor them with your advocacy. Each of these women is a piece of a puzzle that forms a complete picture of me as an advocate. So I'm going to start with Lee Collins. She's in the first photo on the far left. Lee, you taught me about personhood and how to stand our ground and how to fight for our community. We went through a lot together and we won so many hard-fought battles. You coined the phrase microscopic cells to describe an embryo. Thank you for showing me that words matter. Aaron Kramer. Aaron is in the second photo on the far left. Aaron, you showed me the way on federal legislation, literally and figuratively. You even showed me the basement of the US Capitol. If you ever want to know what every door is in any House office building, Aaron Kramer can tell you. You always had hope for our issues and you never gave up. You really helped grow that deep bond between Resolve and ASRM when you were on the ASRM staff for 10 years, and you have been one of my biggest cheerleaders. Joyce Reinecke. Joyce is in the third photo with me. Joyce, I met you advocating before I even joined the staff back in the early 2000s. Your smarts, your drive to move the needle on fertility preservation insurance, and your amazing collaborative spirit made it such a joy to work with you. You taught me what a coalition means and how you show up and support each other and have each other's back. Risa Levine. Risa's in two photos, the first photo on the far right and the second photo in the middle. So Risa, you are the only advocate that a member of Congress told me I have to meet. And my life changed and resolves from that moment on. You have fought for insurance coverage for IVF like no other person in this country, and I'm honored to call you a friend. You dreamed big. Remember when you yelled at me that we should have 500 people at Advocacy Day, and this was like 12 years ago? You always challenged us to be better, and we got there on your birthday. Thank you for that and for giving us the confidence to know that we could dream big. Jane Castaneous. Jane is in the first photo in the middle between Lee and Risa. As you can tell, they all know each other. Jane, my dear friend, we met as volunteers. We nurtured Resolve along for many years, and you became such a huge advocate for adoption. Thank you for doing what you do to this day to elevate the adoption community and to bridge our communities together. And lastly, Julie Berman on the far right in that hot pink dress. Julie, we are kindred spirits as fellow Minnesotans. We've known each other for years. I was honored to serve you when you were chair of the board of directors of Resolve. And then you took that energy and that passion and have become such a leader in our state advocacy efforts, inspiring countless others with your humble leadership, which is never about you, but our mission. It's ironic that I chose a photo of you receiving the Risa A. Levine Resolve Advocacy Legacy Award at Night of Hope in 2024 because it's never about you. You always are elevating others. Thank you for teaching me how to be that kind of leader. Each of you has taught me so much and inspired me. Thank you. So now as advocates, where do you go from here? What inspires you and what problems do we still need to solve? I'm going to give you a little bit of advice to take you on your advocacy journey. This is based on all my years of advocating at Resolve for over 20 years. Have fun. Embrace life. The glass is always half full. You're going to need to fill your cup because this is hard work. Family, the support of my family got me through it all. Show up and show your orange. There I am in the middle with my dog. Showing up and showing your orange, it matters. Showing up and supporting our community in all the ways you can makes a difference. And people are inspired by you and your actions. Have your entourage. This photo is my Resolve volunteer crew that I met in 2000. We are dear friends to this day. Hello to Jane and Aaron and Mary and Jody. Have people surround you that support you. And then remember why we are here, family building. It's all about building families. I love you, T. Don't give up. Don't give up until every problem is solved. Stay connected to the Resolve community. Believe me, you are stronger together and your voice is louder. Please don't give up. All right. Lastly, a huge thanks to the amazing Resolve staff, past and present, who believed in me, who challenged me, who taught me, who supported me, and who loved me. I am who I am because of each of you. I am blessed to have spent a third of my life with the most amazing group of women over the years. How lucky am I? I am blessed beyond measure. Thank you, all of you, for letting me reflect a little bit about my 20 plus years at Resolve, 26 years, as I said at the beginning. That's it. I'm happy to take any questions. You can post them in the Q&A feature. And for those of you who need to leave, thank you so much for being here. Again, I hope you learned something, something that inspired you to take your advocacy into the future. So Michelle Chavez is going to help me with any questions. Go to that Q&A on the bottom and you can post your question in there.
It looks like Charlotte Davis has had their hand raised for a second. Charlotte, do you have a question? Because we can allow you to speak.
Michelle, why don't you not do that and just put everybody in the Q&A? I don't
Okay.
want to get into a situation where people are getting on and all of that. So we are going to handle it through the Q&A, and we're not going to take anybody's live questions verbally, but you're welcome to put it in to the Q&A. Wow, we have a lot of people on. This is awesome. Thank you all for being here. I hope you've been in the chat, and just so grateful for all of you. Michelle, do we have any questions?
Yes. Elizabeth Carr asked, "What's your hope for the future of family building, Barb?"
Oh, Elizabeth, hello. If you don't know who Elizabeth Carr is, Google her right now. Well, I hope that that Resolve stays an incredibly strong voice in advocacy, and I hope that we see some real change and real wins. I mean, let's face it, I hope in 5 years we're looking back and we're saying, wow, we've made tremendous progress since 2025. Wouldn't that be amazing? So that's my hope. My hope is that this community stays strong, that our voice stays loud, and that we start to see real progress. I think we've seen real progress, but I feel like the next 5 years, I want to see real progress. I'm going to actually take this stop screen share. There we go.
Leah asked Barb, "Can this community or how can this community support you in your next move?" Feel free to reply privately or in the future.
Well, thank you. I would just encourage you all, if you follow me on LinkedIn or on Instagram, I'll be updating folks on what I'm doing. I hope to still stay a very strong, loud advocate. I live here in Virginia. We do not have insurance coverage, in the state of Virginia. I would love to work on that and help resolve in any way I can.
And Cassie Wright says, "You are such an inspiration. We love you. Are you able to share what is next for you?"
I'm not. I still a work in progress. How is that? And check back. I'll post on LinkedIn. I'll post on Instagram once I figured out what it is I'm going to be doing. I'll tell you, I am going on a trip with my husband and some friends on July 1st. So my most immediate plans are to get out of town and have a little bit of a vacation. And you know what's going to be amazing is I'm not going to be on my phone and on my email every day. So I'm looking forward to that. Anything else, Michelle?
Right now, there are no other questions.
Okay. Rebecca, I know you're there and looking at the chat. Anything on your end? Any questions that have popped up over there?
No questions, just lots of love. I do wish I couldn't engage in the chat because I was a panelist, but lots of funny stories popped up in my memories when you were talking.
Awesome. Well, I know that that Risa and some of the folks I talked about, Aaron and Joyce, and are on. I know Julie couldn't be on tonight, so she's going to watch the recording, and hopefully Jane is too. I think Lee was on. Oh, Julie is on. There we go. So I hope those amazing women were in the chat as well, and you all had a chance to thank them.
We had one more question.
All right, Michelle.
Barb, how do you feel about threats to IVF access in the Deep South/red states?
Yeah, I mean, we are very concerned about that. We are very concerned that somebody's going to try and sneak something in a bill that maybe we're not paying much attention to, or that passes really quickly. And before we know it, we are in a really world of hurt in a state that's going to be very hard to undo. So that is why we need to be vigilant in all 50 states. We need to have our physician friends, our legal friends, our OBGYN friends, everybody paying attention. It's why the state medical societies are so important, why our friends in other reproductive organizations are so important for Resolve to stay close to, because we help each other out. We tell each other when something's happening, when something's going on. I'll tell you, if you are on Resolve's email and you are asked to do something like send in an action alert or call a legislator, do it, do it, do it, and ask everyone to do it as well. I can tell you a great story that Lee and I were involved with in 2008 when we turned back a really bad bill in Georgia. And it was one of the most inspiring experiences of my career, because it really set me on a path of realizing, wow, our community can make a huge difference when we come together and we raise our voices. So, so I'm worried that something could pass without us knowing, but I believe that if we can catch it, if we can advocate and we can fight, we will win, and we have done that. There's a I just saw Lee posted something. There's a funny story. Bear with me. What happened in Georgia in 2008? At the time, we did have an action alert system similar to what we have today. However, when people would send a letter to their state legislator, it would go through a fax machine and it would get printed out as an actual printed letter in the legislator's office. Now, for those of you who've done state advocacy, these offices are small, they're usually understaffed. So they had a fax machine, and they would churn out letters to the lawmaker. We had about 5 or 6 weeks of this bill moving through the Georgia state legislature, and it would go from committee to committee in the House and the Senate, and then it would go for a vote on the floor. So every time there was something different, we would put out an action alert to everybody in Georgia and we'd say, okay, now today, send a letter to your lawmaker and tell them this, tell them that. It was always something different. So there might have been 5 or 6 times where we asked them to do something. So Lee and I were doing our thing. Lee was in Massachusetts, I was here in Virginia, and we had an amazing advocate in Georgia named Renee Whitley. And she was in the halls of the state legislature every day during this crisis. It was a terrible, terrible bill. And she was walking down the hall of one of the offices, and this staffer comes running out afterwards and says, "Hey, are you with Resolve?" And Renee turned around and she said, "Yes." And she said, "You need to stop sending those letters." And Renee was like, "Excuse me?" And she said, "We are running out of paper." And oh my gosh, Renee just looked at this staff person and she said, "Get more paper," and turned around and kept walking. They actually were running out of paper. We were sending so many letters. We ended up in those like 6 weeks, I think sending close to, I'm not making this number up, something like 100,000 letters. And so we we did make them run out of paper in the Georgia legislature. So look, there's a lot of ways that we're going to get our story across, and if we make them run out of paper, so be it.
All right, we had one more question come in. Will you continue the podcast?
The Resolve podcast Infertility Discourse will absolutely continue. Rebecca Flick is the host, and it will continue. I will not be on the podcast, but she will continue the podcast, and I love the podcast so much. We have a whole podcast fan club, and it's been such a pleasure. We have a couple of podcasts dropping soon. I'm going to be doing kind of a remembrance one as well. I think, Rebecca, we're going to record that actually tomorrow. So but I will not be on the podcast. If Rebecca wants me as a guest, she can call me. Anything else, Michelle?
For right now, there are no more questions.
All right. Well, this has been so much fun and such a pleasure. I didn't want it to go over about 30 minutes. For those of you in Alabama, here I am, Fight for Alabama Families. For those of you who participated in Advocacy Day, who've done state advocacy, who've met or talked to a legislator, who's inspired somebody, thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep up the good fight, and I will be right there alongside of you. Good night, everybody. Thank you.